Welcome to week 2 of my travel log in Israel. This week I am going to be kind of doing an overview of the city of Jerusalem. I have had the opportunity to do a lot of different activities here and actually have about 4 different travel log videos that are in different stages of completion. But this is the one that I wanted to get out next. I scheduled a one-day tour of Jerusalem with Tony from Twins Tours. And before I get to all that we covered there, I want to give you a little bit of an overview of how Jerusalem has grown over the years from clear back before the time of Abraham to the time of Jesus. And of course, into the modern day. What we see here is the landscape of Mount Zion, the mountain that Jerusalem is built on. And then, as we overlay, we see the city of David. This would have been the size of the city when David made it his capital, and also slightly larger than the city at the time of Abraham when Melchizedek was king. Then we see what happens when Solomon builds the temple just above the city of David, right at the spot where Abraham had tried to sacrifice his son Isaac, but God had stopped him and provided a ram to sacrifice in place of Isaac. And then we see how the city grew to the west all the way up to the time of Jesus. And then as we zoom out, we see as it's grown and grown into modern day Jerusalem. So back to my walking tour of the city of Jerusalem as I retrace some of the steps that Jesus took in and around the city. We start up on the Mount of Olives, which now has a Jewish cemetery on it, and we go down to the chapel of Dominus Flevit, which is the spot where Jesus stopped and wept over the city on Palm Sunday as he made his way down into Jerusalem. Let's take a quick look inside the chapel.
This is the chapel Dominus Flevit, the Lord wept. And it's a traditional site where Jesus on Palm Sunday came down the hill and wept over Jerusalem. And you can see here he's weeping, and the people looking on either side of Jesus are confused. Why are you weeping? And it's because he sees the destruction of Jerusalem, the Roman destruction of the city. And the whole architecture of this is built like a tear collector. They would collect their tears when they mourn, and this looks right over the Temple Mount as it goes down. And then you also have here, as Jesus said, that he wished that he could gather together his people as a mother hen protects its chicks, but that they won't listen and will be destroyed.
And of course, this was fulfilled in AD 70 when the Romans came in and completely destroyed the city of Jerusalem and the temple. We next walk down to the olive groves on the Mount of Olives, which would have been the Garden of Gethsemane, in the area where Jesus spent the time before he was arrested on the evening after they had celebrated Passover dinner.
Garden of Gethsemane, olive grove, and then you look right there is the eastern gate, and see the very top of the Dome of the Rock where the Temple Mount is.
Again, there is a stone here that a church is built around that is believed to be the spot where Jesus was weeping and sweat drops of blood as he looked forward to the crucifixion and was asking God the Father if he could take this cup out of his hand, but not his will, but the Father's will be done. We then walk down to the eastern gate of the city, right below the Temple Mount. This is the ceremonial eastern gate, right across from the Mount of Olives, and this would have been the road paved now that most likely Jesus came down on Palm Sunday and came off of the Mount of Olives and entered into Jerusalem. At this point, we started down the Via Dolorosa, the path that Jesus was taken down when he was crucified. Each spot represents a different part of the story, some of which are traditional and not actually found in Scripture. But it's an interesting path to walk, and many pilgrims come to Jerusalem to walk along the steps that Jesus took. Although this part of the path is actually probably 10 or 15 feet above where the road of Jesus' day would have been. And we come to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the traditional place where Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection took place. And most historians and archaeologists agree that this is most likely the actual location. This church is interesting in a lot of different ways, partly because it has 6 different main denominations that are in charge of it, and they never can agree on anything. In fact, they fight and compete with each other so much that the locks on the front doors are actually held by 2 Muslim families because none of the churches can agree on who should have the keys to the door even. And if you look up in the window on the far right side above the doors, there's a ladder that has been against that wall leaning underneath the window since the 1800s, the early 1800s, because the churches can't agree on whether they should move it or not. And all 6 have to agree for anything to be changed or to happen in this place. It's pretty sad, really, and I think that God is looking down on us at times like this and just shaking his head. As you go inside and to the right, you can climb the steep steps up to what would have been Golgotha, the place of the skull where Jesus was crucified. And then down the stairs and to the left side of the entrance is the tomb, which at one point was completely covered, like all tombs would be, but has been opened up, and then a building is kind of built over it that you can go inside and look at the spot where Jesus was buried and resurrected. After leaving the Holy Sepulchre, you can go get some holy bagels in the Holy City. It was Valentine's Day when I was going through the city, and so there were preparations for a number of different weddings throughout the city at various spots. And as always, the traffic in Jerusalem is crazy. You can see the creative parking spots that is actually not that uncommon around the city. One final thing that I did while I was going through the city was stop at the location of the upper room where Jesus had his final Passover meal with his disciples, the Last Supper. And this particular location is held holy by both Christians, Jews, and Muslims for various reasons. As I wrap up this video, I want to give you a quick overview of the ground that we have covered. I went to the Tower of David near the Jaffa Gate, which has a great overview of the whole city. We're up here on the top of the Tower of David, just inside the Jaffa Gate, with the beautiful overlook of the area.
You can see the Dome of the Rock right there, the Temple Mount, which is holy in all three major religions, the Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. It's considered where Abraham was set up the altar to sacrifice Isaac on the top of the mountain, and God intervened and provided the sacrifice. You have the Mount of Olives, and it's covered by a Jewish cemetery, and then the path down the Mount of Olives. You have here on the side of the mountain the chapel that is shaped like a tear vessel, and it is the place where Christ cried over the city of Jerusalem. And that onion dome area is the church of Mary Magdalene, and just all kinds of different places right there. Right at the top there is where the traditional site where Jesus ascended from his disciples up into heaven.
Thank you for joining me on this tour of Jerusalem, walking in the footsteps of Jesus. Upcoming videos that I'm working on are a archaeological view of some of the sites in Jerusalem, as well as a trip to Nazareth, which includes Cana of Galilee, Jesus' hometown, Nazareth, and also a bar mitzvah, a messianic Jewish bar mitzvah that I was able to attend. Well, keep coming back here. There should be a new video about once every week or so. Thank you, and appreciate your subscribe and like of the video. We'll see you next time.